Your unexpected move that makes a narcissist regret for life. Narcissists live inside an illusion where they see themselves as untouchable, convinced their manipulation will last forever, that your presence is guaranteed, and that your forgiveness knows no end. Yet psychologists remind us that a defining moment inevitably arrives. The one they tried to control walks away. Quietly, permanently. That calm exit, so simple on the surface, becomes the wound they never recover from. For narcissists expect confrontation, arguments, or desperate pleas, but never quiet resolve. Psychologists call this a narcissistic injury, the collapse of their control and the shattering of their illusion. Your silence speaks louder than any words, echoing as a reminder that you've outgrown their games. The regret deepens when you detach completely. Narcissists feed on emotional reactions. Your tears, defenses, even explanations give them power. But when you no longer respond, it's as if their oxygen is cut off. Psychologists emphasize that indifference forces them to face an emptiness they cannot manipulate. They realize too late that they pushed you past the point of caring, that your life can thrive without them. Watching you rise, finding joy, peace, and purpose on your own, becomes unbearable. Each smile, each success, is a mirror reflecting their irrelevance, a pain sharper than rejection. Clarity is another blow they never see coming. Their dominance thrives on confusion, gaslighting, and fog. But once you pierce through, psychologists explain, their power dissolves. They regret underestimating your ability to wake up, because once awake, you cannot be ensnared again. Boundaries, too, leave them shaken. Narcissists expect endless access to your energy, time, and emotions. When you draw firm lines, they are confronted with a truth they never considered. Your kindness was never theirs to own. It was always a choice, one they abused. Perhaps most devastating is your choice of peace over chaos. Narcissists rely on conflict, highs and lows, endless turbulence to sustain control. But when you walk away from that cycle, their chaos loses its hold. Psychologists describe this shift as quiet but seismic. Your refusal to engage renders them powerless. Exposure only magnifies the wound. For years they may have cast themselves as the victim, but once you speak your truth, the mask breaks. They regret underestimating your courage, because nothing terrifies them more than being seen for who they are. The cruelest irony is that they gave you the very strength that freed you. Every insult, betrayal, and manipulation became a lesson, forging resilience they never imagined. Psychologists note that survivors often transform pain into power. The weapons used to break you instead built the armor that allowed you to leave. Their final, most haunting regret comes when you reclaim the love they assumed was infinite. They lived as though your devotion had no limits. But psychologists affirm that even the deepest love has boundaries. When you finally redirect that love back to yourself, they are left with only the void they created. In their desperation, narcissists try to pull you back, through sweet words, false apologies, sudden memories. But when you refuse to answer, psychologists explain, the silence cuts deeper than confrontation ever could. Indifference becomes their greatest fear. They regret most the moment you stopped justifying yourself. For years, every explanation fed their illusion of power. The day you stopped giving them that energy, their entire control structure collapsed. And that realization, their tactics no longer work, pierces deeper than any insult or rejection. Their regret intensifies the moment you begin to heal. Narcissists expect you to remain trapped in the wreckage of their abuse, endlessly replaying the pain they caused. But psychologists affirm that healing robs them of this imagined victory. Every laugh, every step toward trust, every piece of yourself you rebuild proves that their control failed. They regret every flash of your resilience, every time you reclaim joy despite their attempts to break you. When you choose self-love, the regret deepens. They spent years conditioning you to put them first, yet psychologists explain that when you redirect your care inward, nurturing your growth and enforcing boundaries, their borrowed control evaporates. They never imagined their influence could end so completely. Regret also strikes when you reclaim your voice. They expected you to stay silent, ashamed, or doubting yourself. Instead, Psychologists highlight that survivors often reach a point where speaking out is not about revenge but liberation. Your truth resonates, their mask crumbles, and every lie they told is exposed. Equally crushing is the moment you stop seeking their validation. Narcissists thrive on making you feel dependent on their approval. But psychologists note that true independence comes when you recognize your worth on your own terms. When you live freely without needing their praise, their imagined power dissolves, leaving only regret. Forgiving yourself delivers another blow. Narcissists want you chained to guilt, stuck in endless should-haves. Psychologists explain that self-forgiveness breaks those chains, forcing the narcissist to confront their cruelty. That freedom becomes their torment. So does your new love, not because they care about your happiness, but because it proves they were never irreplaceable. Psychologists emphasize that narcissists view partners as possessions, and seeing you valued by someone genuine destroys their illusion of superiority. Every achievement, every milestone, every moment you thrive where they failed reminds them of their inadequacy, leaving a sting that never fades. Perhaps the most insidious regret comes from your silence. At first, they may mistake it for weakness, but psychologists stress that silence from a healed survivor is a formidable force. When you stop reacting, arguing, or explaining, you deprive them of the energy they depend on. That emptiness follows them like a shadow, growing heavier with time. Narcissists never expect you to break the cycle. Idealization, devaluation, discard, hoover. But once you see the pattern and refuse to play, the game ends. Your autonomy becomes a mirror of their ultimate failure, and every unreactive moment reinforces the permanence of their defeat. They regret deeply when the role they scripted for you disappears. They pushed and manipulated, assuming your submission was inevitable, only to discover you broke free. Psychologists affirm that survivors often emerge stronger than before, their resilience forged in the very cruelty meant to destroy them. Every weapon they used becomes the armor that makes you untouchable. Another haunting regret comes when they realize they trained you to spot manipulation. The very tactics they used against you become your warning signs. Psychologists note that survivors often develop heightened intuition, spotting red flags instantly. The narcissist becomes the unwilling teacher in a school of pain, realizing too late that you are now immune to their games. They also regret the transformation in how you value yourself. Psychologists highlight that survivors often uncover a deeper sense of self-worth, cultivating an inner love that shields them from future harm. What they tried to shatter became the foundation of your empowerment, leaving them trapped in regret they cannot escape. The deepest sting arrives when they lose their audience. For years, you absorbed their lies, their stories, their performance. But once you leave, psychologists explain, the silence is deafening. Their words mean nothing without someone to validate them. That emptiness reflects their lost power, fueling lifelong regret. Finally, they regret that you no longer chase closure from them. Narcissists assume you will keep pursuing answers or apologies that never come. But psychologists emphasize that true healing comes when survivors create closure for themselves. By refusing to seek it from them, you show that they were never as important as they believed. And that, perhaps, is the regret that cuts deepest of all. One of the narcissist's bitterest realizations is your ability to live joyfully without them. They expect survivors to remain haunted, broken, or bitter. Yet psychologists emphasize that true recovery reveals itself in the small pleasures. Laughing freely, traveling without fear, rebuilding forgotten dreams. Every moment of your joy becomes a mirror of their failure, reminding them that the very cruelty they inflicted fueled your liberation. Exposure deepens their regret. When you reveal their patterns to friends, family, or future partners, psychologists note that the carefully crafted mask begins to shatter. Lies once hidden are dragged into the light, leaving the narcissist to confront the horror of being seen as they truly are. Perhaps their greatest regret is the permanence of your departure. For years, they clung to the fantasy that a door would always remain open, that they could return and reassert control. But psychologists confirm that when an empath closes the door for good, it does not reopen. This finality forces them to face the truth. They overestimated their power and underestimated your strength. They also grieve the loss of genuine love. Psychologists explain that while narcissists crave love, they inevitably sabotage it. Only after destroying it do they realize what they've lost. They regret pushing away the one person who truly cared for them, the one who saw their potential and offered patient, enduring love. Now, every failed attempt to draw you back only reinforces the permanence of that loss. The very tactics they use to control, deception, manipulation, emotional games, have become your shield, a living reminder of their irreversible regret. Their regret grows sharper when they see you embracing solitude. They assumed that being alone would break you, yet psychologists highlight that many survivors discover strength and peace in their own company. This independence terrifies them, because it proves your happiness was never dependent on them at all. They also regret watching you surrounded by real love. Friends, partners, and communities now provide the support and safety they never could. Psychologists explain that this contrast cuts deeply, exposing how hollow their version of love always was. Every smile shared with someone genuine reminds them of the opportunity they squandered. Another profound regret comes when you turn your pain into purpose. Survivors often inspire others, friends, family, even strangers, by sharing their story. Psychologists note that this empowerment strips narcissists of the narrative they tried to control. They expected silence, but your strength becomes a beacon. Each person you help proves their cruelty created resilience, not submission. They also regret the moment their opinions stopped mattering to you. Narcissists thrive on shaping how you see yourself. But psychologists affirm that true healing silences their influence completely. When you no longer seek their approval or care about their judgment, their grip evaporates. That loss of control leaves them frustrated, powerless, and irrelevant. Every assumption they made, that you would remain under their control, that you would never walk away, becomes a source of regret. Psychologists emphasize that going no contact is final. Your absence resounds louder than any words, proving their arrogance was misplaced and their power an illusion. They also regret when you break the code of secrecy. Narcissists depend on your silence to maintain their image. But psychologists explain that survivors eventually find the courage to speak the truth. Even subtle revelations among friends and family unravel the mask. Each disclosure magnifies their regret, because their reputation collapses, an injury far worse than any material loss. And perhaps the deepest regret of all comes when they see you become a role model. Survivors who rise not only free themselves but inspire others to escape. Psychologists highlight how this ripple effect diminishes the narcissist's influence far beyond the individual relationship. What they intended as destruction becomes your legacy of liberation. Finally, nothing enrages a narcissist more than seeing you genuinely happy again. Psychologists observe that survivors often rediscover joy in unexpected places. Every smile, every laugh, every moment of peace without them becomes undeniable proof. They lost the one thing that was real. And when you stop defending or excusing their behavior to others, their last shield collapses. The truth stands on its own, and they are left with regret they can never outrun. Psychologists note that once survivors stop covering for the narcissist, the truth spreads unchecked. The mask crumbles, and every lie, every cruelty, stands exposed, leaving nothing behind but regret. They regret realizing they cannot replace you. Narcissists may rush into new relationships, parading a replacement to prove their worth. Yet psychologists explain that no substitute fills the void you left. Each new partner only highlights the uniqueness of what they destroyed. They regret burning a bridge with someone who offered genuine, irreplaceable love, because no imitation can ever measure up. They regret the day you stopped fearing them. Narcissists thrive on intimidation, fear of abandonment, criticism, or chaos. But psychologists affirm that when survivors step into courage, the narcissist's power collapses. Fearlessness delivers the final blow. Every tactic of control that once felt effective now looks hollow, and regret lingers in its place. They regret when you stop playing the victim. Every act of reclaiming power, every stride toward independence, reminds them that their influence is gone forever. That trail of regret follows them long after you've walked away. Narcissists want you trapped in the pain they caused, forever defined by their manipulation. Yet psychologists emphasize that true survivors rewrite the narrative, transforming from victim to victor. That transformation enrages narcissists, for it robs them of the final word. They regret underestimating your resilience, because your life now proves, undeniably, that their abuse failed. They feel a deeper regret when they see you find peace. Psychologists explain that peace, contentment, quiet joy, stillness, is something narcissists rarely experience. Watching you laugh, create, meditate, or simply sit in calm ignites envy. That envy festers into regret, for they know they destroyed the chance to ever share authentic peace with you. Instead, they are left with nothing but their own chaos. They regret assuming you would always depend on them. Narcissists thrive on fostering the illusion that you cannot cope without their guidance. But psychologists highlight that when survivors prove self-sufficient, handling life, thriving emotionally, embracing independence, the truth becomes undeniable. Their power was never real. That independence reflects their failure, leaving them bitter with regret. They regret the moment you rediscover love, not only in romance but in life itself. Survivors often reconnect with passions, hobbies, and communities, reigniting joy and connection. Psychologists note that this flourishing underscores resilience, while the narcissist remains trapped in bitterness as your world expands far beyond their reach. They regret when you stop idolizing them in secret. Narcissists rely on lingering admiration from former partners to inflate their sense of importance. Psychologists affirm that when survivors cease viewing them as exceptional, the illusion collapses. That loss of silent reverence cuts deeply, exposing the fragility of their imagined power. They regret when you liberate yourself from their judgment. Narcissists thrive on being the ultimate critic, but psychologists explain that confidence neutralizes their influence. When you stand tall in self-assurance, their words no longer wound. They regret ever trying to shatter your spirit, because your strength now reflects their weakness with merciless clarity. And finally, they regret what they never saw coming, that you would live fully, joyful, free, and at peace without them. Psychologists describe this as the narcissist's eternal regret. They lost someone genuine, someone irreplaceable, through their own arrogance and cruelty. That regret never leaves them. It haunts them with every smile, every laugh, every fulfilled moment you share with the world, lasting until the end of their days.